The real victims here was the entire city, all of the citizens of East Cleveland, who had to live in a city with fear to do everyday chores, to get simply pulled over in the fear of what may happen when they were simply pulled over or perhaps confronted while walking the streets. And it's hard for me to imagine what they've had to endure. But again, as of today, there are 16 current or former East Cleveland police officers who have been indicted in the last 6.5 months.
Strangers around me, I don't know who to trust, gotta ground me. I can feel adrenaline, my heart's pounding. The enemies all around, they surrounding. Yeah, I think I better prepare.
Good afternoon. I see we have a full house today. I'm Michael O'Malley, the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming here today. Today we are here to announce the indictment of 11 current or former East Cleveland police officers for incidents of unlawful conduct. Added to our previous indictments, that brings the total to 16 current or former East Cleveland police officers indicted in the last 7 months. I believe it is a privilege to serve the public. It's an honor to be appointed to a position of public service. All of these officers, when appointed to their positions, took an oath to serve and to protect the public. These actions you are about to see are a complete violation of their oaths. There have been criminal acts or a series of criminal acts committed by these officers of the East Cleveland Police Department. The citizens of East Cleveland deserve better. The public deserves better. Today, the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office continues our mission to do something about this behavior, and it is to hold these officers accountable. Make no mistake, there has been a cancer growing in the East Cleveland Police Department. We are doing our best to remove every tentacle of that cancer so that this department can rebuild and grow, to put itself in a position to hire officers who enforce the law as well as follow the law. I want to say this is a sad day for all of law enforcement. A supermajority of officers go to work each day. They put their lives on the line to protect the public and to keep our community safe. It is important to note that it was law enforcement officers who investigated these crimes, presented these cases to a grand jury, and sought to remove these officers who have committed crimes against the public. I thank all of them for their pursuit of justice in these cases. I also apologize to the victims of these crimes and pledge to vigorously pursue justice on their behalf. I'd like to take this time to especially thank my Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office Criminal Division Chief Greg Mussman and the Public Corruption Unit for their hard work in this case, as well as NIDA from our paralegal staff who has worked very, very hard in this case. I also want to thank the Cleveland office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Special Agent Greg Nelson and his team of agents who put in countless time and hours pursuing these investigations. I would also like to thank current East Cleveland Police Chief Brian Gerhard for stepping into an impossible situation, managing this department, and for his cooperation in this investigation. I would also like to thank the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department, the Ohio Bureau of Taxation, and the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation for their assistance. We are now going to play some videos of incidents that led to these indictments. I think think to any casual observer, those videos are appalling and a poor reflection of policing within our community and obviously criminal conduct. I just want to say today there are 3 indictments we are announcing, charging again the 11 current or former East Cleveland police officers. 7 of the officers are newly indicted. 4 officers have already previously been indicted, and they will be receiving additional charges. Again, as of today, there are 16 current or former East Cleveland police officers who have been indicted in the last 6.5 months. Some of the charges for these indictments include felonious assault, interference with civil rights, dereliction of duty. The 7 new officers indicted today include Ian McInnes, a current East Cleveland police detective, Nicholas Fody, who has resigned from the East Cleveland Police Department, Tristan Holman, who is currently a Elyria police officer after leaving East Cleveland, Trey DeHart Robinson, who is currently an East Cleveland police officer, John Hartman, who is currently an East Cleveland police sergeant, Laurice Mans, who was a former officer who has now been terminated, as well as Brian Parks, who is a current East Cleveland police officer. Again, 4 of these officers indicted are currently East Cleveland police officer, and 1 is currently an Elyria police officer. 4 officers who have previously been indicting will be receiving new charges include Tyler Munson, who is an East Cleveland police officer currently on leave as a result of his previous indictments, Kyle Wood, who's an East Cleveland investigator currently on leave because of his previous indictments, Brian Stoll, an East Cleveland police officer currently on leave because of his previous indictments, and Daniel Klumer, who was an East Cleveland police officer currently on leave as a result of his previous indictments. Previously, my office indicted 5 others from the East Cleveland Police Department, including Scott Gardner, who was the police chief, who has now been terminated, Von Harris, who was a former patrol officer who has now been terminated, Willie Warner Sims, who was a former patrol officer who has now been terminated, DeMarco Johnson, who had transferred and received a job with the Euclid Police Department, who has now been terminated from there as well, who was previously an East Cleveland patrol officer. And finally, Alfonso Cole, who was formerly an East Cleveland patrol officer, having been terminated after his indictment. It is important to note that this investigation continues. I would now like to turn this over to my criminal division chief and the individual who's spearheading this investigation, Prosecutor Greg Mussman.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to give a brief overview of the charges that have been presented and true-billed by the grand jury this morning. The first indictment includes 9 officers. As Prosecutor O'Malley had stated, Ian McInnes, John Hartman, Tristan Holman, Laurice Mans, Trey DeHart Robinson, Daniel Toomer, Kyle Wood, Tyler Munson, and Brian Stoll have all been indicted on one singular indictment. All are charged with various criminal offenses. The overall charges against 9 officers are felonious assault, attempted felonious assault, interfering with civil rights, dereliction of duty, telecommunications fraud, theft in office, tampering with evidence, tampering with records, obstructing justice, and disrupting public service. Those are the charges found within the 9 officers on that first indictment. Additionally, there are 2 other indictments. The second indictment charges Nicholas Fody with several felonies. He's charged with felonious assault, attempted felonious assault, interfering with civil rights, and dereliction of duty. And finally, the third indictment that was true-billed this morning includes Officer Brian Parks. Brian Parks has been charged with felonious assault, attempted felonious assault, assault, interfering with civil rights, dereliction of duty, and tampering with records. These indictments that we announced today, there are 11 total officers that were true billed this morning. 11 total incidents ranging from February of 2020 to July of 2022. There were 11 victims that were on these indictments. As of today, there are currently 16 former or current East Cleveland Police Department officers that have been charged. 31 total incidents ranging from June of 2018 until July of 2022. And that includes 17 victims. Right now, I'd ask for Special Agent in Charge Gregory Nelson to come to the podium and make a statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. First, I want to take a moment and thank Prosecutor O'Malley and the entire team for the collaborative efforts on this matter and the thorough overview of the allegations. The cooperative work from the team was very impressive, and I want to highlight that we cannot do this. One agency can't do this by themselves, and this is a perfect example of how we team together to make sure this community stays safe. Well, I can't comment on the specifics of these allegations because they are ongoing. I will say that the FBI, law enforcement officers put their lives in danger every day. They respond to crisis after crisis right here in Northern Ohio, and overall do a great job every day. Protecting the civil rights of our citizens will and always was or has been a priority or top priority of the FBI. And we will uphold the accountability for all people, regardless of their title or position. Mr. O'Malley, turn it back to you.
Thank you. Again, I want to thank the work of the Cleveland Office of the FBI for their hard work in this matter. The Cleveland Office of the FBI has set up a hotline to collect information regarding any other potential issues or civil rights violation committed by the East Cleveland Police Department. If you or anyone you know has any further information regarding abuses by the East Cleveland Police Department, please call their hotline at 216-583-5343. That's 216-583-5343. Again, the actions we've witnessed here today were not all of the incidents, but they're an illustration of the task that was put before us. And it is a task that all the members of our agencies take very seriously. And all we can do from the victims at this point is continue to vigorously pursue justice on their behalf to right these wrongs. In the next couple of weeks, we will be issuing a release detailing the 11 incidents with additional videos. This time, if there's any questions, Greg, come on up. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have today.
Mike, can you talk about the scope of the 16 officers from one department? And has there been anything like this in Cuyahoga County or Northeast Ohio? That just seems massive.
It is massive. I think right now that department has 24 officers, active officers, and what we have right now is indictments with 16 current and former. So of those 24, we know 4 of the remaining 24 are currently, will be remaining. So again, the real victims here was the entire city, all of the citizens of East Cleveland, who had to live in a city with fear to do everyday chores, to get simply pulled over in the fear of what may happen when they were simply pulled over, or perhaps confronted while walking the streets. And it's hard for me to imagine what they've had to endure. But one thing is sure is that we are working our best to try to rid that department of all bad actors, of all criminal elements who are engaging in this type of behavior, so that department can start from building block one and build a department that is based upon respect and following the rule of law. And that's what we need to see in East Cleveland. And it's not going to be easy. In this environment, it's very difficult to find police officers, and to find police officers where the pay scale may not be as competitive as it is in other cities. And so they have a very difficult challenge ahead in East Cleveland. This is not going to be easy to rebuild that police department, but it is better to rebuild from the ground up than endure the conduct that we've seen committed in these videos. And so, I hope there's additional assistance, perhaps from the county sheriff's department or perhaps the Ohio State Highway Patrol, to protect the citizens of East Cleveland. But, the sad reality is they needed protection from people driving around in East Cleveland Police Department cars. And so we may have to take a step backward, and maybe that's what we did today, removing those officers because there's not as many officers on the street, but we will be taking many steps forward when we put quality police officers in that city who follow the law and respect the citizens that live there.
Bottom line, was the culture of that department just broken?
It's the fact that there has been 16 current or former officers. But I'll say this also, clearly based upon the sheer number, you were probably seeing individuals who were hired, who were taught by people who ought not be teaching. And so I'm hopeful that if we remove the bad actors when they hire new staffing, that they can be taught professional law enforcement techniques in respect and respecting people's due process under the law, and that people are treated fairly within that city. And that's my hope. And again, I want to stress that this investigation was conducted by law enforcement officers. The chief of East Cleveland, the new chief, was instrumental. He seems to be an individual who wants to do the right thing. And we're hoping that's a good start, but we had to remove the bad actors, and we continue to investigate. This is not over.
Is there a cultural problem inside the walls of that police department?
I would think, I'll say this too. There are good police officers in East Cleveland who come to work every day and do what's right. Unfortunately, there was a substantial number that weren't doing what was right, and that has led us to these indictments over the last 6.5 months.
Is the prosecutor's office looking at cases over the years people get convicted that came out of the police department?
Well, I'll tell you what, we have a conviction integrity unit, but we are looking, and we will look at anything that's brought before us. But fortunately today, we will continue to look. Fortunately, we look, and we have to look and verify what's presented to us. So certainly anything's possible. We will certainly take, if there's any attorneys or any defendants who think there are issues with their conviction, they should certainly have their lawyers reach out and contact this office. And we will certainly look at what's happened in the past.
Can you discuss how far you guys had to go back? You mentioned 2018 as one of the points, but really how much time these officers had with the department, how much time some of them currently still with the department have?
I'm not sure I understand your question completely, but you want to speak to how long they've been there? I can't.
With going into specific facts, what we can say is different law enforcement agencies, including the Cleveland FBI, were given allegations, and again, thankfully to the Cleveland FBI and other law enforcement agencies, they've taken each one of these allegations seriously and has vetted them through. So some of the alleged criminal conduct has taken place up to 5 years ago. But again, we will keep looking back within the statute of limitations as well as other cases and continue any other cases that are alleged to have happened. And again, I would like to refer again to what Prosecutor O'Malley mentioned earlier, the Cleveland FBI hotline. If there are any allegations of corruption or misconduct, please call the Cleveland FBI at the hotline given, and we will look into those allegations.
And I think, you know, it was unfortunate because some of the videos, they should have been spliced a bit differently, but when you saw that one individual get hit by the car, what you didn't see was, it appeared to us, and hopefully we can get that video corrected, that the police car drove into him. So you may have saw him hitting the windshield, but what you didn't see, and I regretfully that you didn't see, was the car, the police officer taking a left turn and didn't appear to slow down or didn't appear to avoid the accident as opposed to driving straight into the guy. And so I just wanted to clear that up. And then, you know, if you notice, there's a common denominator in these last videos, other than the one where the guy's just breaking the phone for no apparent reason, was that people in these videos were giving up. They were showing their hands. They were not threats. They were acquiescing to the authority of law enforcement and putting their hands up in all of these instances. That wasn't enough. And I don't know what else a citizen can do other than surrender and put their hands up and hope that the arrest goes by the book and things are not escalated. And what we saw here was escalation. And it was escalation from law enforcement. And that's what was tragic. Yes?
Prosecutor, I want to go back, sorry, journalist, Matt. You said there are 24 active officers in East Cleveland.
It's my belief.
Okay. And 16 have been indicted in the last 7 months.
Including 4 of the 24.
And 4 of the 24. So how many are left in East Cleveland?
Well, technically, even the ones who are on leave, who are currently indicted, I suppose are left and probably have civil service rights.
Okay.
So I guess that would leave
Probably approximately 20.
20 who can probably get in a patrol car and drive around.
So 20 East Cleveland police officers to police the city.
Correct. And again, to the best of my knowledge.
And to verify, there are 26 current.
Oh, yeah, because some have gotten hired in the last few weeks.
Okay.
But I don't know if they're actually, they may still be going through initiation, but yes, there were a few that were hired in the last week or two,
Thank you.
thankfully.
Prosecutor, are most of these hires from the previous police chief? And
All of these incidents occurred under the previous police chief.
so it's top down?
It's certainly reasonable to draw that conclusion.
As the county's top law enforcement officer, you watched these videos and you watched what was occurring. What went through your head? What went through your heart, prosecutor?
I was appalled that we could be witnessing a guy handcuffed and his head stopped, or witnessing a guy handcuffed and being tased while handcuffed repeatedly, which to me is a form of torture. And so certainly I was shaken. My next thoughts went to the victims of these incidents and how they're doing. But what we saw, again, were people who had surrendered and were being brutalized. And it upset me, but it also lit a fire in me that these things had to be fixed. And so fix them we will. And so that's what brought us here today. And we're not done. We continue to look, and we will correct. And again, my thoughts are with the people of East Cleveland who've endured this. And, you know, I hope that as we transition to a new department who follows the law and respects humanity and respects the citizens of that community, that we will build a department that is something that community can be proud of.
How did you find these in particular allegations, video from these incidents in terms of the videos that you just showed us here? Where did you get that video from? Did people come forward and tell you?
Well, I can tell you, many of the incidents were reported, but I'll turn it over to Greg. We've got, tips came in indicating that this was the subject that we should perhaps take a look at, and look, we have. And so it was a variety of means, but Greg, you want to get into the details?
We've had citizens' complaints. We've had colleagues within our own office review body cameras and bring it to our attention of concerns. In one of the videos, documents were falsified, and the victim was actually charged with felonious assault on a peace officer. An independent video corroborated that that was not the case. The charges were immediately dismissed against that victim based on the evidence. And again, I have to go back to the dedication of the law enforcement officers that have worked so tirelessly on investigating these incidents. They've gone through hours and hours of video, poll cameras through the city of East Cleveland, through the city of Cleveland. They have verified minute details that have, in this case, exonerated some of these victims.
How long up until this point today, where we're at now, was it when you guys received those tips and now have indicted these officers?
I can tell you that we move as fast as we can. All cases take time. Witnesses have to be interviewed. Documents have to be reviewed. But I assure you, the FBI has given us their resources. Our own investigators in the Public Corruption Unit are working tirelessly, and I assure you, this is not over. More
Do you believe the problems go inside this department?
Any allegation will be investigated thoroughly and vetted.
Are there currently active investigations ongoing that have not been charged yet?
This investigation does continue.
Are these officers in custody?
They will be receiving their indictments as every other defendant would, and will be having an arraignment date set at the later date.
And let me ask too, I know we have photos of 9 of the previous 9 officers. Are there photos of the additional 7?
Photos will be released when they are arrested and booking photos are processed.
And those can be requested to the Sheriff's Department.
Okay. Well, do they have a deadline on when they have to turn themselves in, or?
The clerk of courts assigns the arraignment date. So the public docket should have the arraignment date, and I believe actually was published as we started this press conference.
Are they going to be allowed to self-surrender, or will they actually be actively arrested?
They can surrender.
In addition to Cleveland FBI, can you tell us the agencies that investigated?
So further additional agencies have cooperated with not just this matter. The Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation has assisted us in this investigation. Forensic accountants have assisted us in this investigation, as well as the Ohio Department of Taxation.
You guys said the 26 current officer number. Is that include officers that are on leave now?
Well, there was 24, I think 4 on leave. I think they've hired 3, but I think it'd bring it to about 8 now on leave. So we're somewhere in the 20s, or low 20s.
Are the ones on leave still getting paid?
I do not believe so, but you'll have to verify with the East Cleveland Police
please.
Department.
Are there any other questions at this time?
What would you say to the people of East Cleveland who for years have said, we have a police department that doesn't respect us, doesn't respect our civil rights?
We've heard your calls, and we've responded, and it is our hope that this new chief and the new applicants bring respect and a department that that community can be proud of. And that's my hope. And, you know, time will tell. Again, it's a very difficult environment to hire police officers, not just in East Cleveland. I mean, every city is struggling to hire officers. So I realize it's not going to be difficult, but this was the right call, and it was done, and we've done our best for the citizens of East Cleveland, and we continue to work this case.
I would like to thank you. It's been a long time coming, and justice is being done. And I respect what y'all are doing for our city, because we've been crying out for a long time about these cops that's doing the things that they're supposed to do and breaking the law and doing all this corruption. And I honor you today. Thank each and every one of the staff looking into it and caring about the people. Yes, we do need a sheriff department up there, because I have meetings online and it's off the chain. And if they don't, if the mayor of East Cleveland don't tell them to stop it, they won't stop. I have passed legislation of Tamina Chapman law. And it was legislation that was passed of her law, of her being killed for the chase. I really appreciate everything that y'all are doing for East Cleveland. You're giving us hope today. And you're giving us rest. There's somebody out there who cares about us. And we don't have all bad police officers, and I respect everybody, but you're doing your job, and I'm proud of you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for saying that again. You know, this is it's going to be very difficult, and I feel, you know, my heart's with the citizens of East Cleveland, but this is not going to be an easy job, and that's why I hope we can bring additional resources to that community while we undertake the process of rebuilding that police department to something that we can all be proud of. And you know, I've reached out to the sheriff. I'm hoping your police chief reaches out to the sheriff. I've called people that have influence and can make decisions for the Ohio State Highway Patrol, and it's my hope that we get some assistance from the state of Ohio to try to bring law enforcement agencies in that city that will respect the people and do what's right. And I'm very hopeful we can do that. But again, I appreciate your kind words, but we got to together rebuild that department to something we can all be proud of. And again, I just thank you for coming. Thank you all for coming. And again, this was not an easy day. It's not been easy watching these videos, as I'm sure it wasn't easy for you. But we will continue to work, and we will continue to investigate to fix this problem. Thank you.